Good afternoon. I am Trooper Linnea Crane, the Public Information Officer for Troop E. This case occurred over a period of 19 years while serving as the clerk and treasurer for the Village of Addison. It is alleged the defendant used her position to steal more than $1.1 million in funds by various means from the Village of Addison, filing false documents to cover the ongoing criminal activities, complete the thefts, and to prevent the discovery thereof. I would like to introduce the Steuben County District Attorney, Brooks T. Baker.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. The defendant in this case is Usula Stone. She was a longtime clerk treasurer for the Village of Addison here in Steuben County. As was just outlined, this is a shocking number as far as theft is concerned. We're talking about well over $1 million stolen from a very small village here in Steuben County. It had direct impact on the people, and the process here was amazing. She managed to find ways to steal. It was a very complicated and involved scheme, and then cover that for a very long time until it was discovered by some real heads-up work by the New York State Comptroller's Office. They're going to talk about that in just a second. I really want to thank them up front for the work they did put in. There are hundreds of man-hours here put in by the Comptroller's Office to make this case and to figure out what exactly happened and to develop that number. We also had some phenomenal assistance from the New York State Police, and particularly their Special Investigations Unit, in making this case come together. The case was presented to a grand jury, and last week the indictment was handed up. It was a sealed indictment, which means there was no arrest before today. The indictment yielded 192 counts. The top count is grand larceny in the first degree, a Class B felony for stealing more than $1 million. There are also counts of money laundering, public corruption and corrupting the government, as well as well over 170 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree, involving the documents that were filed to complete these crimes and also to cover them up. So as far as the process is concerned, the defendant appeared today. She was arrested by the state police and brought in handcuffs. She appeared in front of Judge Watches just a few minutes ago. She was arraigned on the indictment, entered a not guilty plea, and she was, even in these days of bail reform, remanded to Steuben County Jail on $20,000 cash bail. That's where she is right now until she posts bail. The case is now on the motion calendar and is beginning to move forward. So with that, I want to introduce Nelson Scheingold from the Comptroller's Office. And again, thank you so much for all what you guys put into this case. Thank you.
Partnership. Good afternoon. I'm Nelson Scheingold. I'm counsel to State Controller Tom DiNapoli. The Controller was unable to be here today, but he asked me to deliver some remarks on his behalf. And what I want to start with is a simple proposition. What could have the residents and the taxpayers of the Village of Addison done with an extra $1 million over the last couple of decades? What programs could have been funded? What services could have been provided? Much less during a global pandemic. We don't know, and we will never know. And the reason we don't know is because Ms. Stone brazenly and systematically siphoned off $1 million in public funds over the course of almost 2 decades. Meanwhile, while she allegedly lined her pockets over those years, my office and their financial and fiscal evaluations found Addison to be in fiscal stress, operating on a shoestring budget, and taxes rose for the taxpayers every single year during that period that she was allegedly stealing. Now, just to put this in a little proportion, show you the magnitude of her theft, if you take the money she's alleged to have stolen, it would have funded the Village Police Department for nearly 4 years. So why are we here? Well, first of all, we're here because of an extraordinary partnership between State Controller DiNapoli, DA Brooks Baker, and our friends at the New York State Police, who worked together and joined forces to root out this alleged public corruption and expose just what had happened. But let's also be mindful. We're here because a public employee, somebody who took an oath with the duty to the taxpayers, reneged on her duty to her friends, her neighbors, and her community. But we are also here because of a complete failure to watch over public finances at the village of Addison that provided fertile ground for this theft. Trust is a very admirable personal quality. Blind trust is no way to run a government. The New York State Comptroller is a constitutional watchdog of taxpayer money. We go and we do audits regularly in municipalities across the state to make recommendations to improve the controls and checks and balances in all municipalities to try to avoid situations just like we're facing here. When we find fraud, we partner with our partners in law enforcement, and to be simply stated, we have no better partners in our fight against public corruption than DA Brooks Baker and the New York State Police. We will find them, we will work with our partners, and we will make them face the consequences of their actions. Since Comptroller DiNapoli lost his initiative to fight corruption and public fraud, we've arrested over 300 individuals across the state on charges of public fraud and corruption, recovered over $84 million. So unfortunately, this is not the first time, but let's all work short and make it the last time. When a public official abuses their position, they don't just steal money. What they're really doing is they're betraying the faith of their communities and their neighbors. And what they're doing is robbing from the confidence that the public can have in their own government. You know, there are lots and lots of rules that public officials need to know. But there's one easy one. There's one crystal clear one. There's one you shouldn't require any education to know. That's the public monies is the public's. It's not yours to do what you want and use for your personal use. Well, Ms. Stone flouted that simple rule over 1 million times over, and now she's going to answer for her actions. So once again, I have to thank DA Baker and thank the State Police for their long-standing partnership and their extraordinary work in this case. And now I have the privilege to turn over to Major Sam Spezio of the Special Investigations Unit of the State Police.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Major Samuel Spezio, Detail Commander for the New York State Police Special Investigations Unit. I'd like to thank our state police members that worked so hard on this investigation, in addition to our partners from the State Comptroller's Office and Steuben County District Attorney's Office for their collaborative work on this investigation. Ms. Stone was placed in a position of trust by not only her employer, but the people of this very community. For her own advantage, she chose to violate that trust for personal financial gain. The New York State Police will remain vigilant in ceasing public corruption and will hold those accountable for people that use their position to take advantage of others. Thank you.
Walk over and grab my glass of water. I apologize, guys. Sorry, folks. Any questions?
How long had she been working for the town, and do we know how long after she began working over there, if you would come up to the mic,
Sure.
if you could, that she began to embezzle some of this money?
I believe she started working for them in 1999, became clerk treasurer in 2001, is that correct?
Yes.
And how far back did your investigation go?
It went back 19 years, is covered within the scope of the investigation. Obviously, we live in a world of proof, so we go back as far as the records will take us when we conduct an investigation. But the scan of this fraud and this indictment goes back 19 years.
Is she an elected official there?
No, she's an appointed official. She was the only full-time official in the village of Addison throughout that time period.
Is she originally from Addison?
I know she lives there and has lived there for a very long time. I'm not sure if she's a native or not, but she does have family there and does reside there.
Question for you, was it the audit that discovered the discrepancies, and when was the last audit conducted?
There were a number of audits done by the village that were, as noted by Mr. Scheingold, essentially ineffective, largely because of things that Ms. Stone did to make them ineffective. The audit, this time by the Comptroller's Office, found these, and it was really some phenomenal heads-up work in noting some red flags in the process that was done by the Comptroller's Office that brought them here and do this investigation. This was months and months of man-hours to bring this fraud to light, to figure out just how it happened and then to give us the information we needed to bring this case in front of a grand jury. So this was it was yeoman's-like work to make this happen, and I really have to thank you guys for doing that, as well as the state police. This is an awfully large investigation.
Are there any other suspects in this time in this case?
No, she is indicted by herself. This was a one-person scheme.
And what attempts will there be to try and recoup some of this, the funds that she stole?
Well, to date, we've not been able to locate any of those funds, so wherever they are, we're not sure. Obviously, if there is a conviction, we'll seek restitution, but that's sort of down the road a little bit.
Can you say again which county jail she's in?
She's in Steuben County Jail.
And there's no, what's the bail set at?
She was set at $20,000 cash bail or $20,000 property bond, so if she posts that, she'll be released.
So why did it take 19 years to bring this woman to justice? Was it the way she took this money?
I'll let you answer that a little bit.
Yes, sure. Like I alluded to in my remarks, what you had was no checks, no balances, no oversight. So what you had is somebody completely in charge of the finances of the village, in charge of the payroll, in charge of the expenditures, in charge of every aspect of its financial operations. So greed animates people, and she took full advantage of it. This is why when we do go in an audit, we try to stop this at the front end, at a minimum to deter it, but actually to stop it from metastasizing until it is 19 years and $1.1 million. I should also note, after the criminal proceedings are complete, we will be issuing a full audit of the village, and we will detail, like I said, once the criminal investigation is complete, all the failings of oversight in this village that allowed this to happen.
And I understand it's up to the discretion of the justice, the judge here, but it seems like $1.2 million for a $20,000 bail, I mean, is that sort of a common amount, or it just doesn't seem like it's that much?
Well, right now, any bail is not a common amount based on bail reform here in New York State. This is a nonviolent felony offense, and the judge went through the process and the factors and set bail on this number. Quite frankly, these days we are pleased when any bail is set, and I think the magnitude of this crime is what motivated the judge to actually set bail in this case.
What went into this investigation when it comes to research, when it comes to man hours? What went into this?
I'll let, again, our folks in the comptroller's office, they did this, so.
You know, these investigations are complex, you know, and I actually have the pleasure of being joined by the controller's team, audit team, and forensic audit team, and investigators who conduct this investigation. It requires painstaking and methodical analysis of all financial records, all budget records, it's your quintessential following the money. But when you have somebody who, employed somewhat of a sophisticated scheme, she was trying to hide her actions. So you have to look at every paper, you have to look at every number, and you follow every dollar, and then you juxtapose them, see what matches and what doesn't match, and then you follow up on that.
Has there been a court date set for her to be back in court, do you know?
She'll be back in court on January 24th, 2024 for argument of motions. That's what's next in this case. So, between now and then, motions will be filed and discovery will be done, all the things we have to do. The case is just beginning the process now. And that's one thing we have to note at this stage, she is presumed innocent. That's something that we have to grant her, and we do grant her at this stage. However, you're hearing more about the investigation now. There's an awful lot of evidence in this case.
What kind of lifestyle did she have? Did she have a fancy house or a big car?
I don't really know that. She and her husband were upper middle class people. They both had good paying jobs. Addison paid her well for what she did. Her husband's is employed and makes a good living. So what they did with the money, I can't tell you. Quite frankly, I don't really care unless we can find it and get it back to the people of Addison. What we do know is what she stole. And that's what this case is all about. It's her breach of trust. And I know we touched on the lack of controls in Addison, but this is one of those things we see in a lot of small towns and a lot of our small organizations is trust. And unfortunately, in this case, the people of Addison's trust was misplaced.
Who is in charge of Addison finances as of now?
I believe there was an assistant to her who was recently hired, and she is now in charge. And I'm guessing there's a lot more control involved, too. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.